Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher says that the Speaker cannot back down at this point to China. He's a U.S. Marine veteran who serves on the Armed Services Committee. Congressman Gallagher, always great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. So, this is not the kind of story that we see come out of Washington every day, because Nancy Pelosi says she wants to go to Taiwan, and she's got a lot of support from Republicans. And the president is telling her he doesn't really think it's a good idea.
Well, I think the important thing to understand is that in some meaningful respect, the invasion of Taiwan by China has already begun. This coercion is part of the process. It's a phase zero operation designed to intimidate the Biden administration into backing down, which they appear to be doing, as well as collapse the will of the Taiwanese people. Because the question is, if we can't even let a congressional delegation go to Taiwan, how are we going to expedite arms sales to Taiwan before the invasion? It's not like Nancy Pelosi's flying over there on a C-130 filled with howitzers and Harpoon missiles. Any American could get on a plane and fly to Taiwan. So she cannot back down. And who the hell is the executive branch to tell the legislative branch, Article 1, where we can travel? This isn't a remote military base where only military aircraft can fly. The whole thing is just an embarrassing display of weakness, and I fully support the Speaker going to Taiwan. And though I disagree with her on almost every other issue, on this issue, she actually does have a long track record of calling out the Chinese Communist Party for their human rights abuses. So I urge her not to back down.
So let me ask you this, Congressman, because we played in the tease her soundbite where she says, well, what do they think? What does the military think, that they're going to shoot my plane down? And in that sense, she's really kind of challenging the White House, saying, where is your spine on this issue? And where do you think their spine is? The president's going to speak with President Xi. What do you expect him to say to him about this?
Well, I think what we've seen in crisis after crisis with this administration is that it's the fear of provoking our enemies that governs their action. Remember, this was a lot of the rhetoric leading up to the invasion of Ukraine. When the Biden administration, preemptively pulled our forces on the ground, they abandoned the Black Sea, it was all because they were afraid of provoking Putin. And similarly here, with respect to China and Taiwan, the Biden administration is so afraid of their own shadow and afraid of the People's Liberation Army that they're unwilling to do the most basic, minor things to maintain relationships between our country and Taiwan, as is called for by law in the Taiwan Travel Act, which explicitly makes it U.S. policy to promote trips like this at all levels of government. I would note also this is a violation in spirit of the Taiwan Relations Act, which calls such coercion a grave threat to the security of Taiwan. So the Biden administration needs to escape this fear trap that is governing all of their foreign policy decisions.
Yeah, it's a great analogy with Ukraine. It's a similar situation in many ways. Russia feels that Ukraine is part of Russia, and China believes that Taiwan is part of China. Do not mess with us. Do not get in between us on this issue. And as you point out accurately, the president has been hyper careful not to ignite tensions. And then what we saw was an invasion, and we hope that's not what we see in this case. And there's a long history here going back to the 50s of this. Here's a warning that was played on Movietone in 1955. Watch this.
In the shadow of the colossus that is Red China, which is stepping up its bombing of nationalist-held islands, this force must be ready for the communists should they attempt an invasion of Formosa.
How likely do you think an invasion is, given the situation at the White House?
Well, I think it's increasingly likely. I think we've entered what I've called the window of maximum danger. I think the danger accelerates in 2024 with the Taiwanese elections in January of 2024, and then our own election, where we'll be preoccupied and divided. But going back to the 50s and the lessons of history, of course, President Eisenhower faced two massive crises over Formosa. What did he do in those crises? He didn't back down. He actually went to the Congress. He asked proactively for an authorization of the use of military force. He threatened the use of nuclear weapons, and ultimately he forestalled a crisis. There are lessons Biden should learn from that.
And we need to learn all those lessons of history so that we don't repeat them. Mike Gallagher, Congressman and veteran, always good to see you. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.